So good evening, and on behalf of the Village of Cary and the Board of Zoning, Planning and Appeals, I'd like to hereby call this meeting to order on this Thursday, April the 28th at approximately 7:30 PM. There's a quorum of members, and I'd like to ask our Director of Community Development, Mr. Brian Simmons, to please call the roll.
Commissioner Meyer,
Here.
Commissioner Graziano,
Here.
Commissioner O'Loughlin,
Here.
Commissioner Jasper,
Here.
Commissioner Kelps, Chairman Court.
Here. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you rise and please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. All right, as I was explaining earlier, everyone, I'm trying as best I can to start to apply some of these Robert's Rules of Order.
Good.
And you'll see me attempt to do that in some of the work that we need to do. So what we're going to be reviewing tonight, as you have in your packet, is approval of some minutes that are dated February the 11th, 2016, February 25th, and March the 10th. We're also going to be talking about tiger control and a request for a conditional use. And then Mr. Simmons has some items that he wants to review around a text amendment and rules of order, which will again apply to Robert's rules. But before I begin, I just want to mention that for your benefit, Frank, we were using this conduct of public hearings that we used last time as a trial.
Okay.
And so the intent here is to use what is considered a best practice. And so the idea behind this is to understand that some of our public meetings this way. Hi, Nancy. Good evening. Thank you very much. That's okay. Welcome. So the idea is that in these environments, we don't necessarily have to swear in witnesses unless it's an appeals hearing like we did with PEDCOR.
Right.
And we also don't need to enter into exhibits like we've traditionally done in past pattern and practice. That's not required of this process. So if you see me deviating from the way we've done these meetings in the past, it's simply trying to apply what I've been learning. And then once we get through that part of the meeting, what we're going to do and have been doing is that Mr. Simmons is going to be giving us an overview of Tiger Control's petition. Well, obviously, if you have questions of Mr. Simmons, you're welcome to ask at that time. Then we'll turn it over to the applicant, Mr. Jacoby, who'll make his case for his petition. Then we'll open it up for public comment. Good evening, gentlemen. And once that occurs, we'll close, and then we'll, once again, if we have questions amongst ourselves, we'll review it. If there's any other questions for the petitioner, we will open up back to the petitioner, and then we'll take our vote. And obviously, once we do that, that goes to the village trustees to make the final decision. So we seem to be kind of using this template as our best practice at the moment. It's not etched in concrete by any stretch, no pun intended, Frank. But it seems to be working pretty well. And the idea is to make sure that we have a full understanding of what's being requested of us. And I think the way we approached this last time seemed to work very well. And I think everybody was very informed of what the request was.
Right.
So unless there's any disagreement, I think we're going to kind of move down that path once again. It's obviously welcome to any comment for improving it, but that's kind of what we did last time, and I think it worked okay. So with that said, I just also want to mention that I have been talking to council around how we approve our minutes. And so, you know, past pattern and practice, we've typically taken a roll call around the minutes. And what I've been informed is that's not necessarily required. So what I'd like to propose tonight is that in your packages, you all received the meeting minutes. And I believe those meeting minutes are now, for the record, are February the 11th, 2016, February 25th, 2016, and March the 10th, 2016. And so I want to confirm that you've all received the minutes. And I'm going to ask now publicly, do you have any comments or questions around any of the minutes?
No.
Okay, and so if there's no comments or questions around the minutes, I'm going to seek a general consensus for those minutes. And I'm simply going to ask those in favor say aye. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No, aye.
Any opposed? All right, so the meeting minutes are approved, so thank you very much. And we'll get better at that process as we move forward together.
Mr. Chair,
Yes?
one question for you. I know that you were saying that we won't be entering in exhibits the way we have in the past. My only question is, will we be asking staff, because there are things like the public notice and things like that that have to be completed, we'll be just making sure we won't enter them, but we are making sure that those are up to date and current.
Exactly.
Okay.
And Mr. Simmons, you're welcome to comment on that if you want.
Sure. Yeah, basically, general practice in this, the board in the past had adopted each individual exhibit, A, B, C, D, or whatever was in
Right.
the packet. Now it's just accepting the entire packet as evidence.
Okay.
So it doesn't call out specifically those items, but the packet would be what would be presented for
It'll be
evidence.
as the packet.
Correct.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And I did check, and in fact, there was the notification with the public.
I mean, the exhibits themselves are stuff that we review, so that wasn't my bigger issue. The biggest one is, did it get public notification or not?
Yeah, it'll still-
My only main concern in all of our exhibits.
Yeah,
so.
the amount of information you receive will still remain the same. It's just rather than verbally entering each item into as an exhibit, the packet is what the exhibit is. And then if a petitioner or somebody in the audience were to bring forward additional evidence, that could be submitted for the packet as well.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think it's now my responsibility here to call our first case. The petitioner is Tiger Control Tactical LLC Limited Liability Corporation. And the case number is 16 ZPA 04001. And I'm going to ask our Director of Community Development to give us an overview of the application.
Sure. The request this evening is a request for a conditional use for a service-oriented business office for Trigger Control Tactical LLC. The subject property is located on Northwest Highway. As you're actually leaving town towards Foxford Grove, is the last developable property on the south side of Northwest Highway. It currently consists of a two-story office building with the zoning district is Zone B2, which is our general commercial zoning district. This is two images of what the building looks like from Route 14. Again, two-story building with an entrance, two entrances, one facing 14 and one facing the parking lot located to the west of the facility. The petitioner is proposing to occupy a office space or a small storage space, about 600 square feet inside the building for use for their operation. Petitioner will give some additional information as far as how the business would operate, but in general, it would be for a business that would help individuals with the state's requirements for right to carry, would have general pistol training, and basically include a training room or two training rooms and an office area in this facility. Under the B2 zoning district, the proposed use, it's not permitted by right, it's a conditional use, so we would need zoning approval in order to go into the location. Petitioner will have a small retail component to their operation as well, with a small retail display that they'll sell various items related to their operation. The zoning code includes a list of standards, which is seen in this slide, that the zoning board needs review as far as consideration of a conditional use. In summary, the conditional use will not be detrimental or endangerous to the public health, general welfare, will not substantially diminish or impair values of property within the immediate vicinity, not impede normal orderly development of surrounding property, not contribute to an overburdening of municipal services, and will be consistent with the policies and future land use maps in the village comprehensive plan. Based off staff's review, staff believes that the standards for this particular case have been met, and that the proposed use is consistent with the village's comprehensive plan designation of commercial for the property. Therefore, staff would recommend, the ZPA recommend approval of a conditional use for Trigger Control Tactical at the subject property.
Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions at this time for Mr. Simmons? Okay. Mr. Jacoby, if you would like to stand, and you'll have to state your record, state for the record your name, please.
Michael Jacoby.
Welcome. And if you wouldn't mind just further explaining your request for the committee members here.
It's pretty simple. I'm basically just looking to use it as a classroom. I do all my actual hands-on training at a private range in McHenry and also two public ranges, one in Crystal Lake and one East Dundee. Actually, it's West Dundee now. GAD has been annexed. So it's just a place to do PowerPoint presentations, really, and my office. And like I said, there will be a retail component to it that I will develop over time.
Very good.
Any questions?
That's where I was going next. So,
Well, I didn't really have a
Yeah.
presentation.
Yeah, that's
If you
okay.
have any questions, that's fine, but that's about all I have.
So there's going to be no ammunition or anything?
No live ammunition will be permitted by students. I will inspect them upon arrival.
Okay.
Only people will be allowed to be armed are people who are legally able to be armed in
Okay.
said premises
Yeah.
anyway, like
Yeah.
myself. But students will not be allowed to bring ammunition into the classroom.
Okay.
The only most of the actual gun is a simulated gun. It shoots lasers at a cardboard targets and a webcam records it to a computer screen.
Okay.
Everything else is done on a range.
Okay.
So it's just me standing and talking like I'm doing now, pretty much.
okay.
No, that answers my question of what a laser training room is. You just answered that, so never mind.
So from the retail aspect, you are not selling firearms or
No.
ammunition?
No,
Okay, do you do that elsewhere?
no.
Okay.
It is something I had looked into, depending on where my premises is located, is something down the road, years down the road, I would like to look into. Right now, we're just looking at a 2-year lease at this property. I know this is not the suitable property for that. So at this point, I've kind of dialed it back to my main focus all the time, which is education.
Okay. Now, you said there would be no ammunition, yet in your business plan here, you say almost entirely forbidden.
As I just stated, I am normally armed in any building that allows concealed carry. So there will be some live ammunition in that I am always armed, but other than that, the students will primarily be for concealed carry classes, so they will not have that permit and will not be allowed to be armed. And they will not be allowed to bring ammunition into the classroom.
Okay, what about others that are not part of the classroom?
Such as
That may be-
customers coming to buy a t-shirt?
Yeah, or, somebody coming to check the place out. They're licensed. They'll be able to carry their weapons and such into the building.
Of course.
Okay. Now, you said it's laser training, but again, here you say we train with inert plastic dummy rounds.
Yeah, those inert plastic dummy rounds are used in actual handguns to do malfunction drills and drills such as that. There's no live ammunition used. So those are actual guns.
Okay, so
being
you'll
used
have
with
actual
plastic
firearms on premises?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, but that's not what I picked up when I was reading through here.
No, there's a 16-hour curriculum that's required by the state, by the Illinois State Police. And part of that, when I used to work at On Target in Crystal Lake, part of our curriculum there, basically 16 hours is barely enough time to cover all the legal aspects. So most of that, in my opinion, they should be a week-long class. But we're doing 16 hours where we mostly have to spend most of that on the law and then try to get them into some, safe handling of firearms. But there's no prerequisite for that. There is not a lot of firearm training. So I try to extend that a little bit to try to make them safer than they normally would be by teaching them how to draw from holster and things like that with it. So they're going to use their actual gun, but they're not going to be using any live ammunition.
Okay? How do you make sure that's happening?
The same way I've done it in the past. I mean, it's a matter of inspecting them when they come in, making sure everybody's on the same page and understands. The guns are all open, with their actions open, then we flag them, which is a plastic device that goes through the chamber and the barrel to ensure that and then they sit on their desk just like that.
Okay?
Then one at a time, I verify that they're like that, and then I hand out the dummy rounds and show them that they're actual plastic dummy rounds and show them how to use them, and then it just sets up different malfunction drills so you don't have to use live fire ammunition.
Okay. You also mentioned here teaching non-lethal self-defense techniques.
Those are victim
Judo,
avoidance. Pardon me?
judo, karate.
No. I'm not martial art type of stuff.
Okay.
More like there's an NRA class called Personal Protection in the Home. Teaches home safety techniques.
Okay.
That's part of the non-lethal curriculum. Another part of the non-lethal curriculum is victim avoidance seminars, which are basically how people should behave and act in public to minimize the risk of being targeted by a criminal predator, that type of thing.
Drills,
No, those are
physical,
seminars.
okay, all right. I'm good.
Thank you. Okay, so Mr. Jacoby, before I ask a question, I just want to double check if anyone else has any other questions.
I'm good.
So my question for yourself was your hours of operation, but I think I was just informed that it appears to be.
Classes would primarily be evening and weekends, but I would, to maintain some type of standard retail hours and office hours, I would probably be there from noon to 8 or noon to 9 every day.
Okay, and are we defining every day, Tuesday through Sunday?
Yeah, Saturday and Sunday I normally work, so then Monday and Tuesday are the days off.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Because most people are only available on the weekend for the class. And it's, like I said, it's 16 hours, so if I do it on a weeknight, they have to do 5.5, 3 times. If I do it on the weekend, they have to do 2 full 8-hour days, plus they have to go to the range and do the qualification and
Exactly.
training on the range with me, so.
Exactly. Okay, well, thank you.
Just out of curiosity, you have classes already lined up, or you already have classes in place elsewhere?
Not elsewhere in place, but I do have classes lined up, yes.
With people signed up for it?
Right.
Okay, good.
Originally, I thought we'd be able to move in on May 1st, but when this process started, now we're targeting for June 1st, so I've had to delay it a little
Yeah.
bit.
Okay, well, that's good.
Okay, well, thank you,
Any other
Mr.
questions?
Jacoby.
No.
I don't have any, but let me just double check if anyone else has any questions.
good.
No?
I'm good.
Okay, well, thank you. So this is when we turn our meeting over to the assembled public, Mr. Jacoby. So, gentlemen, I don't know if you have any questions. Good evening. All right, thank you very much. So we'll close the public portion of our meeting. Does anyone have any questions they'd like to review amongst each other as board members? Questions, comments, concerns for myself, Brian? The applicant, we're good? Okay, so if there's no questions, I think what we're going to do now is we're going to take our vote, and just to be transparent again, Mr. Jacoby, you know we're short 2 of our board members. To get a favorable review, you need at least 4 favorable votes. I just want you to be aware of that. Okay, so with that, I'll ask Mrs. Bragg to please take...
Motion.
Yes, I thank you very much, Brian. We need a motion on behalf of Tiger Control.
Trigger control, sir.
Is it Tiger? Tiger.
capable of controlling tigers.
Thank you. You and others. Let me just get to petition. Thank you. I'd like to entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of a conditional use for Trigger Control Tactical Training Center for the property located at 188 South Northwest Highway, subject to the following conditions. 1, the conditional use shall be granted to Michael Jacoby Trigger Tactical LLC for the property located at 188 South Northwest Highway.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All right. So with that, Mrs. Bragg, if we could call the vote.
O'Loughlin,
Yes.
Graziano,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Jasper,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes. So, Mr. Jacoby, you've received a favorable approval. I think you're aware that you need to coordinate with Mr. Simmons to move forward to the village trustees, and I'm certain that Brian has a date in mind for that.
Yes, May 17th is the,
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good
luck.
luck.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, gentlemen, you don't want to stay for the rest of the meeting, huh? You want to hear about text amendments? All right, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Good luck.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So as you can see, everyone, I'm still getting adjusted to the saddle over here. So the next case that we're going to review is ZPA case 1604002. And what we were going to review now with Mr. Simmons is dimensional standards as the first piece, and the second piece of that is rules of order. So back over to you, Mr. Simmons.
proposal this evening is for a a couple of minor changes to the village zoning ordinance. The slide that's shown here, this is for reference as far as the village's website where individuals can access the village code. But the process for this, these certain text amendments began with staff in a couple of zoning cases that we had. We discovered a few discrepancies when the codes were codified. There were some issues that had occurred where things were not entirely codified correctly that kind of predicated staff to go back and review the zoning code, sign code, and subdivision regulations to make sure how accurate those documents were. That review was completed in December, January time period, and the sign and subdivision ordinances had no issues that we found through the codification process. But the zoning code, we found approximately 23 instances where there was some corrections that needed to be performed. Mainly the issues were just minor wordsmithing. A word was missed from an ordinance or minor issues, but most of them were able to be directly corrected with the codifier, and they're currently going through the process to make those changes now. One of the areas that we found required some additional direction just to clarify how the code was drafted, the intent of the ordinance, and as the board will recall, it's related to the porous materials are exempt provision in the dimensional standards table that was subject of an appeal hearing last year. Staff asked the village board for direction on how to correct the table. And they asked myself to pursue a public hearing to correct the code and then also add language for Robert Rules of Order for ZPA hearings. So a little bit of background with the porous paving material exemption. The code was modified under Ordinance 110403 for the creation of the public open space, park and open space districts. And what you see on this slide is basically what that ordinance approved. It included a small section of the dimensional standards table, and that added 4 new conditions or notes underneath the table. In the way the code was drafted, Note J was added for the porous paving materials are exempt, was added to the column heading for the lot coverage, was not actually inserted in the cells, but the way that the notice for the change was performed was related to the public open space districts. The way staff interpreted this provision was that it was only towards the public open space districts. Obviously, through the case that we had last fall, there was a different opinion, but then the decision was affirmed by this board during the appeal hearing. As part of the codification process, notes G through J were renumbered to H through K. Mainly, the reason for that renumbering is there were other ordinances that had also been approved through text amendments that created other notes that had the same lettering. So when it was codified, all those notes were just added to the code and then renumbered as they're going through. So the note J was renumbered to note K. But then when it was codified, was never actually put back into the table that was online or in print. So that's where the confusion that particular case came up. So to clarify the language that was in the code, staff proposed to add additional language to the note K to basically revise it to say porous paving materials are exempt from lot coverage requirements in the park and open space districts to clarify where that exemption specifically applies, and then also to place both notes L and K in the individual table cells. So the new updated table would be what you see on this slide. So it would move the note L, which is currently in the column heading, which is for the brick paver exemption for 20% of lot coverage, moving that into the actual residential districts that it would speak to. And then note K would also go into the public or the park and open space districts specifically for that porous material exemption. So it's provides more clarity as far as what exemptions there are for lot coverage related matters. Any questions regarding that proposed change?
They cleaned it up
Okay.
quite nicely.
In addition to the proposed change for the course material exemption and lot coverage provision for brick pavers, the board asked staff to make proposed modifications to the rules of order for the zoning board, specifically to add language within the code for Robert's Rules of Order. Currently, there is text within the municipal code for the village board meetings, which is very similar to what is proposed in this slide, that speaks towards the operation or the facilitating of their meetings. There was no specific language regarding Robert's rules for the zoning board. In general, the board's practice has been to generally follow Robert's Rules of Order. It was just a provision to add that to ensure that it was actually codified in the code. So the language that's proposed here is language you would find elsewhere in the municipal code related to village board meetings as well. Just to propose modify the section 1770.014 for meetings to add the extra sentence to that paragraph. Text amendments require, within the code, there's certain conditions that must be met, or standards for consideration of a text amendment, which are summarized on this slide. Proposed amendment is not detrimental to the orderly development of the village. Amendment shall not be detrimental to endanger the public health, safety, morals, or general welfare of the community. And the amendment promotes the public interest and not solely the interest of the applicant. Staff believes both of the proposed amendments or the proposed amendments this evening meet these standards and recommends approval of them as presented. Be happy to answer any questions you may have regarding any of the amendments.
I had a few, but you answered them.
Okay, let me just go back to this.
I do have one question that has nothing to do with this, but are they doing the same thing as regards the tenor of the meetings to the other boards within the village?
At this point, I don't know if there's plans to change for like the police commissioner things as that. The only amendment that was proposed at this point was for ZPA. But I would think that would be a wise move to other boards and commissions to also modify their code. That's a suggestion I can make as well.
Any other questions?
No, it just seems like we're always getting involved in redundancy. I mean, we got the K in there, we got the definition of the K. Why do we have to say parks and open spaces if that's the only place it appears? But I understand why we're doing it, just a lot of this seems redundant.
And I will say too, as far as the proposed amendment is to specifically clarify where that note went to.
Yeah.
But the village is currently in the process as well of retaining a consultant to assist with a rewrite of the zoning code, basically a unified development ordinance. So that process will be going to the village board likely next month with our consultant selection. So we'll be doing a more comprehensive review of our regulations over the next year or so. This is kind of a housekeeping matter to kind of correct the issue that we had with the appeal, but there'll be more intensive amendments, in the future that this board will be a part of as well, involving discussions.
I think it's a good step in the right direction, so thank you. All right, so this is the part of the hearing where I'm supposed to open it up to the public, and the record should reflect there is no one in attendance for the public now. So we'll close that part of our hearing, and unless there's any questions, and I don't believe there is, the chair will entertain a motion to recommend to the Village Board of Trustees approval of text amendments of the zoning ordinance of Section 1720, District Regulations to modify regulations in the Table of Dimensional Standards and Section 1770 Board Review to add rules of the conduct of public hearings.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much. Is there any other questions? So Mrs. Bragg, if you will.
O'Laughlin,
Yes.
Graziano,
Yes.
Jasper,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Corey.
Yes. So we have a positive recommendation, Mr. Simmons, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. And folks, I'm going to keep this part of the hearing still public because there's a couple of housekeeping things that I do want to go through. And then if we decide we want to close the meeting, we can do so at that time. But first and foremost, I really wanted to publicly say thank you to Jennifer. As you may know, this is going to be her last meeting. And so Jennifer, I know what it means, the commitment that you've made for the past 5 years. It's been my pleasure to sit next to you for many, many, many of those meetings. And I want to say thank you for your service. You've done a great job for our community.
Thank you.
I personally appreciated it. And Holly is the same. She's not here. And I think you should be aware, and the reason to wanting to make this public is that on May the 3rd, Jennifer will be recognized by the village for her commitment to the ZPA. And so if you can make that meeting, it'll be at 7:30. Joe Tournier will also be recognized for his service over many, many years. And so if you can be present, I will appreciate it. Mr. Graziano, I know well that you'll be on vacation. Your presence will be missed.
Can I phone it in?
You can? Yes, you
Yeah.
can.
I will be out of town as well, but
All right.
enjoyed working with you, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've
with
enjoyed it, I really
Yeah.
have.
And kind of along the same line, just to keep you plugged in, we are trying to plan some training, and I'm hearing from Mr. Simmons tonight that the next meeting is probably going to be on or about May the 26th, if I'm hearing the meeting correctly. So perhaps on one of those meeting dates in between there, a Thursday is what we're trying to do for training. I don't know what it's going to consist of yet, and whether or not we get it done in May remains to be seen. The other item that I wanted to keep you posted on is that we did interview ZPA candidates. We had a total of 8 candidates. That was whittled down to 6, and that whittled down to 4. It's in the purview now of the mayor, and he's reviewing it with the village trustees. I think on May the 3rd, those new ZPA candidates will be known and sworn in. And the reason for bringing that up, everyone, is that I'm going to ask publicly now that once we know who those people are, I'm going to ask you to understand who they are and make a determination of who you would like to mentor. Because I think in fairness to them, it's going to be a new process. And I'm not overly concerned where people decide to seat themselves. It's completely up to you. But I would ask humbly that whoever you decide to be the mentee of, if you would be seated beside them, because I suspect I, like they, will have questions just as I have questions now. And you've seen me kind of struggle a little bit along the way here. So I think that'll be a good best practice for us to move forward.
Did I hear you say that you expect to have the appointments made on May 3rd also?
That's my expectation.
I
Whether or
guess
not.
you get first pick, Frank.
Why? Oh, because you won't be
And in fairness, if you think there's value in waiting until we're all assembled again, I'm flexible that way.
That's
Whatever
fine.
works for everybody is, I'm flexible that way. But I think it's a good thing to do because I know for myself, when I came on board, I was like, what do you do now? And I actually did reach out to Jim, and he was extraordinarily helpful, when I came aboard. So I think that practice should be continued.
You sure?
Yes, I do, absolutely.
And Mr. Chair, I would say that when we do know the folks that are going to be on, I think whenever we've had a new member, the first thing we do is tell them to pick up the village code. And that's not always easy to get. And I know it's online now, but a lot of us, it's
Even finding it online.
Even on finding
Yeah.
online isn't easy. And I know for me, the book I have in my briefcase here, yeah, it's something I review quite often. And I would just say when you maybe have 3 copies printed, ready to go, to just say, here, start reviewing.
We definitely can do that. And that, obviously, with the updates that the codifier is currently doing, that's going to correct some issues that are in the code. If you have one of these bound editions, it's outdated.
No, but it's a good reference to start from.
It is a good, yeah, but we'll produce hard copies based off the online version. I can print it off in Word and create new bound documents for you, so you have a new document to start off from. And then if we have updates to come out in the future, it can give you inserts. to
Give you
go into
inserts,
that.
yeah. That makes 7 of them.
Right, we'll do so. Yeah, it's like, it was.
If it's the newer updated code, yeah, I mean,
And the codifier should be making the changes this month, or it should be completed with those changes by the end of May, is from what I've been told. So the one that was reviewed tonight won't be in the ordinance because it still has to go through the board, and that will be probably updated next year. But whatever modifications there have been to date I can give you a clean version by the end of next month. So
Cool,
possibly the
cool.
next zoning board meeting.
But I mean, it's just that to me, I know it's one of the first things I've told anyone that's come on this board is get a copy of the zoning ordinance first and foremost.
And Mr. O'Loughlin, just for the record, I did say to each candidate that we interviewed, that was my strong recommendation
Yeah.
to them, is to really start reading through the code, because that's kind of really what we do here.
Yeah.
And so that was made known to them, and I like the idea of having printed copies, so thank you very much for your support of that.
And we can give them copies of the comprehensive plan as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. And the other item that I had for you, and I have two more items, and then we can close, I'll ask for, to adjourn, is one is that you might recall from previous meetings, we started to have a discussion around having the meeting start at 7 PM. I am flexible either way. I don't know who has commitments later than 7 PM, and if people have train rides. No need to make a decision today, because I think out of respect for the new members, we need to understand their points of view as well. But that is something that we'll probably want to review, perhaps at the May the 26th meeting formally, if that works for everybody, and if it doesn't, it doesn't, that's okay, but we'll bring it up.
A 7 AM meeting would be a burden for me.
7 AM,
PM. 7 PM would be a burden for me.
it would, so 7:30 is preferable, understood.
And I would agree, going through the spring, well, your kids aren't in baseball this year, but going through the spring season right now,
Yeah.
yeah, it's 7 o'clock's going to be a rough one if we have a Thursday night game.
Yeah, and I suspect, knowing the people that we interviewed, they too have children, so that could be the same situation. So, okay, that'll be, we'll discuss it again.
Discuss
but
it.
I understand that that's probably not going to happen. And then finally, I think all of you know that I was trying to reach out to you, and I think Mr. Simmons is going to try to put together a new contact list for all of us. So we'll do this when we have our next meeting. But basically, it has everyone's name, their term, your address, when your term expires, et cetera. If possible, if we could put everybody's birth date, just month and day, so we could recognize birthdays from time to time, not years,
Is
but days.
that the list without phone numbers?
This would be the list that has wrong phone numbers.
No, wrong phone number. Okay, because when I was having trouble getting in touch with you, I found an old list
Yes.
that had phone numbers. I found a new list that didn't have phone numbers.
Right. That would be this one. Yeah. So the point is that I think what I'm thinking about, everyone, is especially for the new members, if they're trying to reach out to their mentee,
Yeah.
that would be particularly helpful. And the other thing that we're going to do formally is that once we have the new committee assembled, I think one of the things we should do is go to at least a trustee meeting and introduce ourselves for no other reason, saying, hi, I'm so-and-so, and everybody knows one another. I think that's a good way to kind of move things forward. So I'll ask for your support in advance of that request, and I'll leave it to each of your judgment of how you want to proceed. So with that, I don't have anything else formally, but I want to leave it open for questions before we potentially adjourn. Okay, then the chair
Motion
will,
to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, meeting adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.